Hi, I'm Sarah. Y'all, today we have an interview. Took a little time after the challenge final, but we finally got her here. You guys, we're talking to Cayla.
Hello.
Hello, lovely.
Sorry it took so long. I was letting the tea brew.
Right? You were like, let me see. What do I want to spill? No, so there was no extra drama with you. You just were in Croatia on a trip.
Yes. Yeah, I was just out of the country, unplugged, just trying to forget the final.
Now, I hear that there was more drama to your final ending than we saw, but we're going to get there, guys. Stay tuned for that because I love going in chronological order. I love building a story and a journey. So hang tight. If you're new to this channel, please click subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. Do all that stuff, you guys. You know the drill. And then, yeah, say hello to Cayla.
Hello.
First off, I can't believe this. So you posted just the other day that it's the anniversary of your final leg. So did you mean like actually racing the final leg?
Yes. Like October 6th we were in LA on top of that building, like literally racing for $1 million. So yeah, I didn't notice it until Penn and Kim posted something too. And I was like, weird. I knew it was something today and I just didn't know what.
So tell me, this like timing and this journey is crazy. You did that, then shortly thereafter we're watching your season, and then you get the call for the challenge. Like, give me this whole timeline.
Yeah, so when we went back the second time to finish season 33 of The Amazing Race, it basically wrapped up October 6th. So October of 2021, we wrap up Amazing Race. It starts airing. And so that is in February and March. So just a short couple months when, we were done. We didn't have to wait super long like season 32. So when we got done airing Amazing Race in March, I got a call for the challenge literally a week later. And it was like, you have to leave in 5 days. Like, if you are interested in doing this. So.
Whoa. Okay. That's a crazy call. So I did hear that you were an alternate, which is why that call came a little late to you. But did you have any idea what the challenge was?
Yeah, I was a super fan. Me and my mom have watched the challenge just as long as I've watched Amazing Race. Like back in like the real world, like early on CT, Bananas, Anissa, early on in those phases, I had always watched the challenge, which is why when I got the call, I was kind of like, really? Like me?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. I guess I was just like, I was too starstruck about like the opportunity. I was like, whoa.
But you hadn't heard through the grapevine that people were going on this? This was a shock to you?
Yes. So once I got the call, then I had like reached out to, my cast being like, hey, like, did anyone else get this call? Like, I was just so shocked that I did. And the more people I reached out to, the more I noticed, oh yeah, like we got the call, we're not going to do it. Or we got the call, but timing wise or whatever. So like once I said something, then like all these people came out of the woodworks and I was like, well, why did you guys tell me to begin with? I'd been a little bit more mentally prepared, but
right. But you said, heck yeah, I'm a super fan. Let's go. You packed your bags, kissed your loved ones goodbye, and said, send me on an adventure.
Yes. I was literally like, I'll leave tomorrow. I was so excited. Yeah.
So, but the strategy now, you have to figure this out. You're one of only 3 for Amazing Race. These aren't from your season. Like, what's your relationship here and what's your mentality going in game-wise?
So I didn't really know exactly how many people there would be going into it. The only rumor that I had really heard was BB is already like pre-strategizing. That was really the only like rumor going around, like going into the challenge. So it was really when I got to the airport and I start seeing people show up. And again, like I've watched Big Brother, so I knew all the Big Brother people. Amazing Race, I've obviously seen. Love Island, I knew nothing about. So when those girls kind of showed up and, those guys, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know what they're from. And Survivor, I was like touching base. But yeah, so I'm like going around and I'm like, I only recognize 2 other people from Amazing Race. And I very quickly am like doing the math, like, what? Like, this is so off balance. So, I mean, ultimately, my strategy was just immediately make connections with Leo and James because like they're my people. That was a no-brainer. And then just try and use my knowledge of like being a fan of the shows to make my friendships and connections elsewhere, because I knew just the 3 of us were not going to last if we didn't like spread our wings to the other shows.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. It's episode 2 when we see the algorithm put you with James, which at this point, it's a little nerve-wracking, this algorithm. What's your thought being paired with, one of 2 other amazing racers?
We were not happy. Like, and I say this with like, James is literally one of my best friends. Immediately we were like glued together, but we also were like, we do not want to be partnered together because we're sitting ducks. It was this Big Brother and Survivor big number base, and they were going to go at each other, but who was going to take the first move? And no one had to if they could just pick off the Amazing Racers, like, because like, we're just easy sitting ducks,
Right.
We were so upset. But then at that point, we were just kind of like, all right, well, at least now we don't have to hide our bond, like moving forward, if we can last, through this, second challenge. So yeah, initially we were like, damn it, this is not good for us, but then it was just like, well, we got to use our bond, like to the best of our advantage at this point.
Well, this second challenge does not go great.
I
mean, it looked, first off, James's like fall and scream is terrifying. And then it looks like you never quite grabbed on. Is that accurate? What was happening here?
That's completely accurate. So, I mean, the only thing I will like kind of add that they didn't show is they kind of show after James does that really bad fall that we both are just like, okay, like we're done. Like that wasn't the case at all. I went back up 3 more times. So like part of me is like, all right, they did me a solid. They didn't show me completely falling and failing 3 additional times. But James and I went first. And so we were the guinea pigs of when you're jumping onto these buoys that are spinning. I thought grabbing onto the tire would be the best strategy, but really it turned out there's chains in between the tires. So if you can grab hold of those, it was just a lot easier to grab than the tire was. And we obviously showed that don't go for the tire. It doesn't work. Because I just could not for the life of me get onto the tire. And I didn't think to grab the chain because I didn't have gloves on. So I thought like for sure, like that would just like, I don't have arm strength. So I didn't think I could hold on. I felt like it would just like rip my hand. So the second and third and fourth time I went up, which they didn't show, I just went for the letters. And I finally did get a vowel, but I dropped it on my fall.
Right. And so if it dropped in the water, you guys couldn't take that? That didn't count?
No, you had to have like full secure of the letter as you went down into the water. And so I like plucked it off, and there was it was like on this like zip tie almost. So it didn't just easily come off when you jump and grab it. It was like stuck, and there was like a pullback into where it literally just like launched behind me.
Right.
It was a very poor performance. And I mean, I would be lying if I didn't admit seeing James fall as hard as he did, it like spooked me a little bit. So I was just, it's weird. Like once you're up there, it seems a lot higher than it actually is. And then, I watch back the episode. I'm like, wow, everyone made that look so easy. But like for me, I was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And the ladder was also incredibly difficult, and you wanted to keep, James was like in acrobatics or something, or like circus school, or I don't know. And he's like, just keep your body as close as you can to the ladder, and that will help you get up, because just dangling in the water, it's really difficult. It's not just a simple ladder that you're climbing, but I kept my body so close to it that I was scraping my legs and arms on the way up. So like literally 2 weeks in afterwards, I saw these massive bruises all over my body from just like scraping the ladder going up. But I did go up the ladder the most out of the females. I just
Oh
didn't get
my
any letters.
God. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. At one point I was like, could Cayla have just stopped and just worked on the word? But I think James said you guys didn't have any vowels. Like there was just no option there.
We had no vowels. So like every time I would go up, he's just screaming at me, like, when to jump, like to try and go for an A or an O to try and
Hmm.
make a word out of the letters he did have. Like all we needed
Yeah.
is one vowel. We would have gotten one word, which we still would have lost. But
Hmm.
I just couldn't do it. I grabbed the A, but like I said, there was that give once it like
Yeah.
plucked off the buoy, and it literally just like whipped. I just couldn't hold on to it.
Yeah.
I had no strength. So
This is a great question from Shafika. Since you have some sort of expectation from watching the show, how is it different
I
actually
would
being on it?
so how it's different was I only would say that it was different in the beginning because I was just so used to like extremely physical eliminations in the arena.
Hmm.
Whereas what I felt like I experienced up until the point where we had a hall brawl and the pole wrestle, which wasn't until the very end,
Yeah.
the elimination seemed very Amazing Race-esque. Like it
Yes.
was memorization, it was attention to detail, there was strategy involved. Where me, as a fan of the challenge, granted, there are some of those eliminations, but I think it was a little bit less physical, like contact physical than I
Yeah.
had expected, which for my first time going in, I was like, oh, this is a lot better than I expected because I thought I was going to get my ass handed to me. So,
Yeah.
and I was pleasantly surprised that I could hold my own and it wasn't so contact physical.
Yes. Oh, thank goodness. Oh my God. This is my first season watching. If it's contact physical, I just like I'm under a table. I don't want to watch that stuff. Like these are much more my style challenges. Like this arena that you're now forced to go into with James. You
Yes.
guys are biking and like memory puzzle, which is a little concerning from your Amazing Race, PTSD that might be happening, but you guys just absolutely kill it.
Yeah, I mean, I went into it so confident just because James was my partner and James is such a strong partner like in that area. Um and as much as like I was like, "Oh my gosh, like don't let history repeat itself" kind of thing with the Amazing Race. I like kind of like poked fun at myself there. I also at the same time was like, no, like I'm pretty good at a memory challenge. Like there were
Mm,
more memory challenges that I did well at an Amazing Race other than just the final.
right.
So I
Yes.
was like, okay, I at least have James on my side if I, have a little snafu. So we got
Hmm.
this.
But you guys did it.
Yeah.
It was so impressive. It was so fun to watch.
And it was honestly fun doing it too. Like
Uh-huh.
I had so much fun with him. I like everyone was like, "Oh, like was that like just for show?" I go, "No, we genuinely were like if we're going to go out, let's go out having fun and like making the most of it." And I told myself this all the time because Raquel like encouraged it on the Amazing Race like you're not going to perform well if you're like in a like mentally just already like not in a good headspace. So it's like
Defeated. Yeah.
yeah, if you go in like having fun, like you could surprise yourself and do really well, or at least like I don't know. It's just, I'm all about like your mental headspace and like going into
Hmm.
things like positively. And that's just how I operate the best. So I went into that super confident and I mean, it paid off.
Yeah. Well, now talking about how it was helpful to have James, he's going to shortly leave, after this. How does that affect your game? How does that change things for you?
Oh, in that moment, I thought it was like detrimental to my game because he at least came into this challenge with a lot more notice than me. He is a lot more intertwined into this reality TV realm to where in the beginning, I heavily relied on him to make some of my connections just to kind of guide me into like this social strategy because on his season of The Amazing Race, they did have alliances and they did,
Hmm.
use that. Whereas my season, we did not. So from an experience level, I kind of looked to him for guidance as far as to like learn what I wanted my social strategy to be. And so for a moment there when he left, I was like, well, there goes my social game, you know, because I was just so reliant on him. But really, once I kind of collected myself of like, you know, saying bye to like my best friend in the compound, I realized that the reason why him and I got along so well is because our social strategies were actually alike. And it wasn't just that I relied on him, it was just that we mirrored each other in that way. So he kind of, you know, gave me the tools, or at least like brought the tools that I already had to light, you know, to kind of keep going, you know, in this social game. Because as much as, you know, the challenge is all about the physical stuff, the behind the scenes social gaming that goes on that is not included in the episode, because again, they're only 45 minutes to an hour episode, they can't include everything. There is so much game going on in that house. It's insane. It's nonstop. So yeah, James leaving was devastating to me because he also slept in the bunk right next to me. So now I was like, now it's empty. But luckily Tyson moved out and Tyson came and took over James's bed. And
nice.
that was really fun as well. So
well, that's fun. Well, episode 5, you're paired with Derek, and you guys have this barreled treasure daily, and y'all killed it. I don't know how you lost it. It looked like you guys had this great lead. I know. What was this like?
So this was the first challenge that I felt like my competitiveness like finally kicked into gear, because I grew up I was a lifeguard on Pensacola Beach down the road. I am a swimmer. I love to be in the water. I'm a water baby. So everyone else is like looking at this water and they're like, oh my God, it's a swimming challenge, like kind of freaking out. Whereas I was excited, you know? So it was like the first time that I felt like this is my challenge. Like I'm going to win this. And really like the thing that tripped Derek and I up was, swimming back with those puzzle pieces. I want to say it was Angela and Danny. I could be wrong. If it wasn't them, I know it was another team, but their puzzle pieces got loose on the swim back. So they had to swim after their pieces. And we were so far ahead to the point where we were lapping people like on our final swim back to the barge where TJ was, where we looked at each other and we were like, we have such a big lead. We can't lose it by like losing our puzzle pieces on the swim back. So we like tied our puzzle pieces super tight to Derek. And mind you, like when you swim, you're creating drag against those puzzle pieces and the rope that's tying them together, to where when we got up to the barge with TJ, we had the hardest time untying our puzzle pieces because it was so tight and that rope is like so wet. So it's all like melded together. So initially we lost a lot of time just getting our puzzle pieces untied to where we could even put them up on the board. And then it was just kind of like the classic case of, you know, too many cooks in the kitchen. Derek is very strong with puzzles. I felt like I was very strong with puzzles, but it's like, you know, every time he was trying to put and move something, it was moving what I had in mind until we kind of realized too late. Like I was like, he feels confident. I'm just going to let him do it because I felt like I was messing up his progress. He was messing up my progress. So I was like, all right, just one of us needs to do this and like kind of take a step back and like, I can help you from behind. But initially it was just getting those puzzle pieces untied. And then, yeah, just the too many cooks in the kitchen. I was so mad. And especially to see Tyson win it over us, who just dragged Cash throughout the whole thing. Like the little like consolation was like, all right. I mean, he is like, he swam in college. So it's like, good on him. Like I was happy for him because he had to do more work than anyone. But also it was like, God, of all people, of course, freaking Tyson comes from behind and beats us. I was so pissed.
Yeah. I feel that. But speaking of Tyson, you have a little conversation, or at least this is what they show us in the edit, that you have a little conversation, kind of plant some seeds, that maybe Ben is a little frustrated with his winning. And we then, you know, get this whole rivalry, because this is going to lead to Sarah going into the arena. We have like this whole thing from this point. Were you a part of all of this? Did you realize what was going on?
Okay, guys. This conversation and this topic between the Tyson, Ben, Sarah stuff
Mm-hmm.
was such a huge deal that I didn't even know that I was igniting, I guess.
Yeah.
My intentions with that conversation were actually like Tyson had recognized that Ben was definitely agitated that he had won.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to communicate like two things can be true. Ben can be upset that Tyson won because he keeps winning and he's collecting all of the money, which obviously none of the guys are happy about. Ben might have just been more vocal than the other guys. But
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that Ben's gonna try and come after him.
Right.
I was more so trying to keep the peace, and I thought that maybe if I like communicated that with Tyson, I could show him like, hey, like yes, this is happening, but me and Sarah are so tight with Ben and we want to be tight with you because they had this whole Survivor Strong alliance going on, which I had kind of been grandfathered into. I don't know how much weight that carried like the whole entire way through.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of trusting what some of the Survivor players had been telling me as far as, when James left, like I was like an added number that could be on their side, to where I was just trying to keep the peace with all the Survivor players, honestly, because I was like, Ben, like, we'll have our turn or whatever. But really, I guess I had just reminded Tyson of the doubt that he had in Ben's trust, I guess,
Right.
from previous seasons in Survivor. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what was so difficult with this game of the challenge was there were so many previous relationships brought into the season that if you didn't know what happened in certain people's seasons, it was detrimental. Like
Mm-hmm.
for my case, getting involved in Tyson and Ben and Sarah. I
Right.
didn't watch Winners at War and Survivor, so I didn't know that there was any mistrust there. I thought it was just Survivor Strong. So I thought
Mm-hmm.
me communicating that with Tyson and hearing Ben out, like I didn't know that I was creating a riff, and that's on me. And there was just no salvaging it at that point. Like it was, but then you see later, it didn't even do me any good with Tyson. So, like, I don't know,
Well, it
man.
helped you with this episode. I mean, it kept you out of
Yes, it helped me
arena this
this
time.
episode. I just thought it would also help me long term. But yeah, I mean, I could go. This whole podcast could be about that whole situation. But I was trying to gain Tyson's trust. But I also was trying to have Ben's back in the sense that obviously certain parts of that communication was left out.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, two things can be true. He can be upset that you won, but he's not going to like blatantly go after you. I don't
So
know.
were you
It was a
shocked
mess.
when Sarah went in and then things
I
got like, whoa?
I was I was just as blindsided as she was. I was like, "What?" Because again, my conversation, yes, was about Ben. Like to
Yeah.
Tyson, it was about Ben. So for him to take a shot at Ben by going after Sarah, again,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Ben and Sarah's history. So I'm like, how is going after Sarah going after Ben? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, connect the dots for me. Like, where's the context? So
Right.
it's like I obviously didn't find out till after the fact. I was blown away that they took a shot at Sarah. Also because I just felt like it was dirty. I get you were trying to take a shot at Ben, but Sarah had done nothing at that point but have Tyson's back. So it just felt dirty to me. And I was just, yeah, I was shook. I was shooketh. I did not understand what was happening. And I didn't realize my conversation with Tyson held like such gravity at that moment. Like, yes, was it a strategic conversation to get my name out of consideration? 100%, but I never thought it would have taken the turn of going after Sarah in return. So,
And were you already very close with Sarah at this point?
yes, I was definitely already close with Sarah. She was one of a few people when James left that really just showed any interest in working with me. Because at first, it was just kind of like, oh, like the Amazing Racers, like, there were comments saying like, oh, well, they're just playing for themselves. Well, yeah, you would too if you only had a group of 3 people to work with, and now one of them's gone. So what do you mean I'm only playing for myself? Everyone's only playing for themselves, but some people have the cushion of having 7 other people from their season to have their back, because no one wants to ruffle any feathers yet. So she was someone that first saw, the opportunity and the value in working with me because I could be an added number to Survivor, which would offset BB's numbers. So yeah, Sarah and I were very, very close at that point, which is why her, being thrown in to get at Ben, like, not only shocked me, but it like upset me because I felt like it was like partially my fault. And it was like at the, I saved myself at the expense of possibly getting her sent home.
Right.
So, yeah.
But Cobra head, turkey leg, whatever it was, she took care of business. And that takes us to episode 7, recreational driving, which this would have been my favorite. And you and Dom obviously kill it. You win it. First off, you named the car the Dreamsicle, I think you said.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like that's good luck. That helps you.
I'm all about naming things. In my season of The Amazing Race, our donkey was Coltoni. It was a mixture of my boyfriend and Raquel's boyfriend. I don't know. I'm like, let's have fun with it, and Dom was the perfect partner for that. Him and I had grown into like having a really like true friendship in the house as well at that point. And we had both communicated, I want to work with you. I hope I'm your partner at one point. And so when we were partners and then when I saw what it was, I was like, I did this already. I navigated Raquel blindfold to get those pinatas and we beat Kim and Pin, so I was like, Dom, we got this. Like, I felt so confident. And yeah, having Dreamsicle as our little vehicle really paid off.
It did. That was so fun. I would love to ram a car into some other cars.
It was like real life Mario Kart. It was so much fun. It was so much fun.
So you guys now obviously get to decide who's going to go into the arena, and obviously Dom has a little bit of a thing with Cayla, but you also mentioned that maybe Cayla had never had a one-on-one conversation with you. What was really going on here with putting Cayla and Kira in?
Yeah, so at this point, by episode 7, it is a blatant decision by me that like I'm working with Survivor. They're the ones that constantly come up and have actual game conversations with me. When I like come and sit down at the table, they don't like change the conversation, So for me, it was just, it was very important to me because I knew Dom was working closely with Desi and Danny. And he was just a big glue in the Survivor Strong. And even though I had Sarah for sure, communicating, you're with us, you're with us, you're with us, I wanted to make it blatantly clear to Dom, my partner who was Survivor Strong, hey, I'm with you guys. And if you feel like, if you're like, this is who you want, like, I want what you want because we're on the same side here. And then it also, selfishly, I'm looking at what guys are left, and Cayla hadn't really had conversations with me involving game unless he needed something from me. The only conversation he had with me was when there was talks of Leo going in, and he was like, if I put someone in, I just need to know that you're not going to retaliate against me. And in that moment, I was like, as long as it's not me, no, I won't retaliate against you. But as weeks went on, I realized the only time he had a conversation with me was when he needed something or when he needed to know, like, hey, you'll have my back. But it was kind of like, well, when have you had my back? So I didn't have a relationship with him. It wasn't like, oh, I want him gone. It was just, I'm not burning a bridge here because there's no bridge that was built. And this is what would make Survivor happy, at least the Survivor people that I was working with. Now, I don't think Tyson was happy about that. But yeah, for Dom and I, it was a no-brainer. It made him happy. It made me happy. I wasn't losing anyone that was potentially going to have my back later. So that one was easy. And I feel bad because Kira was actually one of the Love Island girls that I sat next to on the plane coming down. And we didn't have a ton of game talk either. But then again, I didn't really have a ton of game talk with a lot of the Love Island girls, but she was just, I loved Kira so much. And I felt bad because I just, she was kind of just like a casualty in, wanting Kyland out. But yeah, that one was kind of a no-brainer decision for Dom and I don't even think we really entertained anyone else. Yeah.
Somewhere around here is when Leo is starting to talk about leaving the game. What did you have talks with him about staying, going? Where were you?
Yeah. My biggest thing was, again, there's only 2 amazing racers, and I know how much Leo was struggling with being away from his businesses, and in my mind I would just try and like remind him of like just trust the people that are at home kind of like dealing with it, because I had so much faith in Leo, and so many people underestimated him. A ton of the females didn't want to be partnered with him. And I just didn't understand that, because he's an Afghanimal. He did Amazing Race 4 times. Every time he went into the elimination, when he went in with Sarah, he killed the strategy on that. They like him and Sarah did so well. When he went in with Alyssa, like they crushed it. So I don't know. I just felt like a personal responsibility to give Leo an opportunity to prove everyone wrong. So when he was talking about leaving, like I just didn't want him to do that. I understood why he needed to, because I mean, that's his life that he built at home with those bars. But I had multiple conversations with him to try and get him to stay, but it ultimately came down to, I understand if you have to leave. Like, I completely get it. I just really hope that you don't, because if you win this thing, the money will compensate for any loss at the bars, and you would prove everyone wrong. And how great would that feel? Because I just hated people underestimating him, because I love Leo. I know people have their certain opinions on it, but when he puts his mind to it, like, he's incredible. So.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I couldn't believe how underestimated he was. But I think it kind of went with this whole, there were only 3 of you. And I don't know if everyone watches Amazing Race, just like I don't think everyone watches Love Island. It's like they don't know who they're playing with.
Well, and also if you don't know an individual from their season, if they didn't watch Amazing Race, you can only go off of what's happening in the house and how you carry yourself. And Leo was definitely like a goofball, in the swimming challenge with Sarah. Like he was joking around, and he wanted to climb down the rope ladder, and Sarah's like, no, jump. And it's like, when you see those things and that's all you have to go off of, you don't have the knowledge of me watching him run Amazing Race 4 times.
Right.
That's all you can really go off of. And so when we were finally partnered together, I was like, it was funny. We had a joke. He even says it to this day. He's like, you're the boss. You're the boss. You're the boss. And I was like, Leo, we have got to turn around this attitude of like, everything's funny and not serious. I'm like, this is serious. Like, we need to kick butt, and people need to see that there's a fire in you, and like, you're not here as a joke, So I felt like by the end, it definitely came around to that. People were very impressed by Leo, which I actually think ended up being his downfall. And people were threatened by him, which is why he ended up going in on a hall brawl, which I have my own thoughts about that, but it's fine.
Yes. Well, all of a sudden you're on a boat and we're yelling Fab Five, which was surprising to me. I was like, these people are working together. But then I find out from exit interviews, that was the first time you guys had said Fab Five.
Yes.
So were you surprised? Were these your people?
Okay, so these were my people. Like, it was not just because it was the first time we said that, it was definitely not the first time that the 5 of us were like in cahoots. Like, we just genuinely loved hanging out with one another. And then on top of that, at this point in time, Angela's only communicating with Tyson and the Survivor boys. That's just the fact of the matter. Like, she was not communicating with us whatsoever. And Alyssa was definitely her number 2, like right alongside her. And so it was kind of like one of those things, well, we're not going to force you guys to talk to us, but it definitely came off when we watched the episode that we were the ones excluding them. And I'm sure, we each felt that way about each other. We each have our own perspective on the matter. But the Fab Five thing, one, was on an off day on the boat. So I'm shocked that even made it in there.
Yeah.
But two, it was kind of a play on Big Brother, like kind of a stab at Big Brother socially, because Big Brother, all they do all day long is socialize and make alliances, and they name them,
Yeah.
like you have the cookout and the leftovers and stuff. And so we were like joking about, oh, well, we're the Fab Five,
Yeah.
because like the two BB girls want nothing to do with us. So I like, it's weird because like I feel bad about it watching it, because Angela and Alyssa are like my friends in real life, but in that moment that was strictly game. It's like, well, you're not wanting to work with us, so I guess us 5 girls will work together. I mean, we saw how that didn't really play out. It was not executed well.
Right.
But
we saw that Angela and Alyssa, they were a bit of a duo. Their approach with Tyson and the Survivor guys, like we did see that, even though it did look like you guys were like, High five.
Yeah, it was definitely like a joke. It wasn't meant to be like serious until we saw the next challenge, and it was about sabotage, where I was like, whoa, 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 like this Fab Five needs to be like a real thing. It just, it wasn't, there was no like foundation to build off of there, other than like, we just 5 girls genuinely enjoyed each other.
Yeah.
So.
Hi, James. Thank you for
James.
supporting your bestie.
Miss you.
Well, speaking of that daily collect 4, you seemed the only one who was like, let's strategize, guys. Until Sarah's like, oh crap, a strategy is being implemented on me. How did you seemed open to helping Sarah? Where was your mind at this point?
Yeah, I mean, because at this point in time, like I'm qualified for TJ's final. So I just need to get there. And the way that I get there is by not having my name thrown into an elimination or like losing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just looking at Sarah as someone who undoubtedly has my back, and she's with Survivor. So if there was anyone in Survivor that maybe didn't at that moment, I knew Sarah could kind of convince them to keep me around. So I just saw the value in, I want her to qualify. I want her to do well. Like, I don't want her to lose.
Yeah.
But halfway through running that, it kind of dawned on me, well, this isn't a bad thing that she loses, because I have full confidence no matter who she goes against in the arena, hopefully it's not me, like she'll win, which will get her money. She was very like, she had made multiple comments that in Survivor, she hadn't won immunity. She hasn't found an idol, like stuff like that. So her win in the arena with Leo was one of the first times she's actually won a challenge, but unfortunately didn't get her enough money. So now I'm thinking, well, people that are against you don't want you in the final. And how do you not make it to the final? As if you're not qualified with the money. So if you don't win, the only other way to get the money is to go into an elimination and take it from someone, which, if no one's going to be willing to throw you in for you to get the opportunity to get your money, if that makes sense, like you might as well lose. And now you're guaranteed to go in and get money. So yeah, it was just initially, it was kind of like that panic of, oh, well, we need to help her get her money. And these 2 girls obviously aren't working with us. And Angela's board was immediately in front of the pathway to run to all the boards. So honestly, if it was Alyssa's board right there, I would have said, let's sabotage Alyssa just out of convenience. So like we had to run through this tunnel, and then all of the boards were placed on the field, but the tunnel, literally Angela's board, you had to run by Angela's board to get to any of the other boards.
Yeah.
So it just made sense to do Angela, but obviously we all couldn't get in cahoots together. And then halfway through, I had to play for myself at that point.
Mhm.
and have the conversation with Sarah later of like, hey, this isn't a bad thing. You're guaranteed to go in
Right.
there and get money. So
Yeah, I mean, we had seen in the edit, I don't know how much real time this is, but where she's like, "Get me in the arena, let me get my money, I want my money." And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's like, "We're gonna put you in the arena right now by you losing."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wait, this is what you want, Sarah?"
Yeah, like it was like a joke where, obviously Angela and Alyssa executed that perfectly. But we were like, that was a bad move because
Yeah,
now you've given her what she's wanted
right.
when she basically volunteered to go in twice. It just, no one would do it. No one would give her the opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would.
Strategically, I mean, I think that that's a great I mean, it might be kind of mean, but like strategically, don't let someone get their money and then they're not making it to the final. That makes sense.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
I would have done that.
Which is why at the end of or at the end of that challenge, like Sarah was happy. Like she literally was like, I'm not mad about it. Like Desi will give me who I want, which didn't
Right.
happen. But what she wanted was just to get her money. And I think she knew whoever she went in against, she was gonna get it. So as strategic as Angela and Alyssa's move was, I don't think it was a good move. Um, but the intention, I see why they did that.
Right. Okay. Now we're going to do some creepy nighttime swimming.
Ugh.
And you have to pull yourself out with a rope. Angela crawls over you and Sarah pushes you up with her head.
Yes, like literally rams her head right up my butt and like gives me a little boost up. Which, I mean, we had to climb up. It was like a rope on the edge
Mhm.
of this cliff, and the whole bottom of it was super muddy. So, I mean, I get halfway through, and then just where I plant my foot, and mind you, we're wearing tennis shoes on this swim. And I don't know if you guys have ever put tennis shoes in
Oh,
knee high
yeah.
mud. Your foot is heavy because that mud is gunked on your shoe, and your shoe's really heavy. And now all the traction on your shoe that you're using to climb up the edge of this cliff, I mean, it's like mud on top of mud. So yeah, my left foot completely sinks and then like goes into a sinkhole. Like I was like holding onto the rope and I'm trying to pull my leg out and it's just like sucked into this hole. But yeah, luckily, like once I got my foot free, before I could even like attempt to like reposition myself, Sarah's already there, like ramming her head up my butt and like literally just gives me a boost up. I was like, oh, thank you.
Thanks for the assist, however it works.
Yeah.
Now, this relationship that you have built with Sarah and Dom really comes in clutch here
Yep.
and appears to save you from going into the arena.
Oh, it doesn't appear to save me. It definitely saved me. Like, I mean, because Sarah or Dom could have easily flip flopped. Not in like a cocky way or anything, but I knew Tyson was gonna say me. It was like no
Mhm.
secret, but I wasn't worried because ever since I stepped foot in the challenge, I started working on relationships because the numbers were not in my favor. Um, and so as much as it only showed at kind of the halfway through point, it was really since the beginning that I was making those connections with the Survivor players, which included Sarah and Dom, and especially Dom and I's win and both wanting Kylan and getting him out solidified our bond. Dom was working very heavily with Danny and Desi. Desi was like my number one girl after James left because James kind of connected Desi and I because he was like, oh, like, Desi's in LA too. And so is James. And he had mentioned that she was like really hesitant and really nervous to come in because she didn't know anybody. And he's like, Cayla doesn't know anyone either. So he kind of like connected us and Desi and I just had this really strong bond. So I wasn't ever worried that it was going to be me if it was truly like the vote that we had anticipated it being. Because
Mhm.
at that point, if Sarah or Dom would have flip-flopped and said, my name, I mean, I truly would have been baffled. Like our relationship was that strong. But
Interesting.
I also just like the people pleaser in me, like I just want everyone to like me, and I don't want to like, I don't know, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or I don't want to let anyone down, but I also like I just want like the truth about myself kind of thing.
Mhm.
And initially, when I heard that Tyson was going to say my name, which I knew, because Angela obviously is super tight with Tyson, who's super tight with Alyssa. Like I just knew it.
Sure.
But it was this thing of like, oh, well, Cayla's weak. And so I eventually confronted Tyson and I was like, I have a problem if you think that I'm weak. Like, I'll fully admit my upper body strength is not there. But as a player, I don't think I'm weak. I went up the ladder the most times on the buoy challenge that James and I failed at, but I still went up the ladder the most.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the containment when I was with Leo. I
Mm-hmm.
ran the most out of all the females. And so and I was the best swimmer. So I'm like, I'm the best swimmer. I have the strongest running endurance outside of Sarah, who has run 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. So it's like, I get I might not have like the upper body strength on my own, but if it comes down to a partner, you would obviously have that. So like, do you really think I'm the weakest in this situation? And the whole big thing that came up was Sarah had to help me up the rope. She didn't have to, she just did because we were
Mm-hmm.
so close at that point. And I appreciate her help 100%. But did I need it? I don't know because I wasn't even given the opportunity to get back up because she was just already there helping me.
Right. Right.
So, I at least appreciated him entertaining that conversation to where, he was like, no, it's more so I don't trust you. And I was like, okay, that's a pill I can swallow. I also
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why you can't trust me because I mean, I told you about the Ben situation and I've told you on multiple occasions, you're a strong swimmer. I'm a strong swimmer. You're a good runner. I'm a good runner. I want to work with you. It sucks that we only got partnered together for trivia,
Yeah.
but I can at least understand that Angela is your number one and Angela's tight with Alyssa and you trust them more than you trust me. And I was like, okay, I can live with that. I just don't
Sure.
want the story to be I'm the weakest one out of the females left because I didn't believe that to be true at that point in time.
Right. I agree. And I mean, we didn't get this full storyline of like your extra survivor member. So when it's coming down to this like split, which way are we going here? Being worried for you when Dom was like, Kayla's my girl. We won together. I was like, yes, because that was a surprise to us, basically.
Yeah, which again, like as a fan of the show, I was like, okay, I like that's cool. Like it's
Yeah.
fun to watch it in that way, just in that moment. Like I was super grateful for the time I put into Dom. Like Dom and I would even practice memorization strategies before we were ever even partners. We made like there was a pool table out there and there was a bunch of pool balls and like so we would name the different colors, like different fruits and it was like this fruit is this number and like we would just do little like mind trick games to prep ourselves for if we
Hmm.
ever were partnered together. Like it's just yeah, there was so much history between Dom and I other than what they just showed. But it does make for better TV to be like, whoa, Dom had Kayla's back, you know what I mean?
Right.
But really, like I put in a lot of time and effort into my social like relationships, which is also tough because I take those to heart and I take those personally to where like thankfully like I never had to make like an extremely tough decision and like burn someone. But I
Yeah.
think it's because I really tried hard to put myself in a position to where I didn't have to do that and to let people know like I will have your back if you have mine kind of thing.
Right. Well, this takes us to the final, y'all. Here we are. Now that we know that you were very close with Desi, which we did not quite fully know,
hmm
this very first part of the final, Desi is going to have a horrible way of going out. How are you feeling about this?
So I we're standing on that platform and it is rough. Like just my lifeguard instincts like are tuning in and I'm like I don't in that moment I'm like someone is not going to be able to do this
Yeah.
or multiple people. It was a tough swim like even for me. Um so when it happens and it happens so fast because one when you jump in there's just like the shock of like how cold the
Cold.
water is,
Mm.
so it's the initial shock of like oh my god it's cold, then you have the waves, um and then you got to swim. Yeah, there was just so much happening to where I mostly was just focused on getting me and Danny moving, because like which Danny did great, but I know he was worried because he was like, thank God I'm with you, like I'm not the best swimmer. But I don't know, it all was just such a whirlwind, honestly. And then I just hear this blood curdling scream of help, and it's Enzo. And I mean, the waves are just like capsizing over his head. I think like the rescue boat like hit him in the head at one point because the waves were so bad. But there is a point where I turn around and I was gonna go and try and calm Enzo down for Desi. Like I fully was going to turn around and just be like, hey, like you're fine. Just let the waves take you into shore. I had this like mental battle of like, I want to go help him for Desi because we all fought so hard to get here, and for your final to be over before it even starts because of your partner, like that's just devastating. But also, like I've made a friendship with Enzo at this point, and it's like, you can make fun of him all you want, but like a fear is a fear. He can't help it, like the water and it was extremely rough conditions. So I don't blame him. If you ever talk to Sarah had a panic moment as well. I could see it in her face. But, Danny had to be like, Cayla, like,
he's like, we have to keep going.
Well, not only that, he's just like, think about it like this. If Enzo is your partner and he's going to quit on you, are any of these people going to come and help you? Like, because it could be you next that he quits on, and then you're shit out of luck kind of thing. So it was just really hard to be there and to watch. One, because like I truly know that Enzo was scared for his life in that moment. And then just hearing Desi's cry, like she's screaming, like, please, Enzo, don't do this. And it's just, my heart broke for her because Desi would have done very, very well. And it's just, I just felt for her, like as a human. I felt for Enzo as a human. It sucked. It sucked. It sucked that it was as rough conditions as they were.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody understands that once you hit a panic attack, there's really not much you can do. And I've never been a lifeguard, but I have heard that like sometimes you just have to knock people out in that position because they will start to harm you.
Yeah. It's fight or flight, And so if someone was coming in the water to come and save him, like honestly, he probably would have used me as a way to get above the water, which would make me go under. And I mean, they literally train you to take your buoy and knock people over the head to like make them unconscious, and then you can just swim them back in with their head above the water, like
which I wish Desi could have done, but
I know.
Obviously, that's probably not. That's frowned upon.
It was really, I mean, it's tough to watch, but it's even tough to live, like to watch it happen and like see two people you care about. I mean, but then at the same time, then you got to get back to reality and you're like, well, that's two less people I have to beat, I
guess. Yeah. And then you killed that puzzle. You guys start very strong at this point. But then you're going to get stuck by yourself and have to eat an onion and some garlic. It looked awful. Thank you for the maggot cheese callback. Loved it.
I meant that comment.
I can't believe that you meant that. That is insane to me. But this feels like the one I would want to do by myself, since you're basically still doing the same amount of work as everybody. But it did seem very, very hard for you. Talk me through this.
Yeah. I mean, I would have rather done the swim and the puzzle by myself. But it's hard to explain. Like that one is like more of like a mental like thing, because you're just seeing team after team leave you, and then it's more so like, if I quit now, it's not like I'm letting down a partner. Like it's my own game. Whereas like if you have a partner and you're thinking about quitting and it's really hard, you're not going to quit because you're not going to let your partner down, kind of thing. At least like with the remaining people left. So for me, it was more like, this is so awful. I'm not ruining anyone's game other than my own. So like I really struggled with like, do I want to keep doing this, or can I even do this? Because everyone can say what they want about it. I knew the second that I just saw vegetables there, that it was going to be way worse than eating eyeballs or guts or so. I would have much rather that.
What?
Yes, 100%. Because I mean, you see Angela say like she knew the lemon took away the acidity or whatever. Like I didn't know any of that. None of the rest of us knew that. So I will pay anyone $1,000 right now if they will do that in an hour and get through it. Like it's just, it was so awful. Like I had no taste buds for like 2 weeks. My tongue, like when you look at your tongue, there's like a bunch of little like dots. It was just smooth. It was like smooth as butter. And then it would like foam to like build the taste buds back. It was awful. It was awful. And then to like have to go run and do math like by yourself, which that was fine, like not a big deal, but it was just like the heartburn and the continuous like upchuck that was happening. I was like, and the only reason why I didn't quit, because I was there, I was like, screw this, I'm done, was Sarah literally was like, do not quit. Like, you have to promise me that you're not going to quit. And I mean, it was just like one of those things. Like, I looked up to her like a mom. Like, we would call her Mama Bear, which, you know, it's again, little things that you don't see from the show. I didn't want to let her down. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to quit. Like, this sucks, but I'm not going to quit.
But, well, good. I'm glad she did that, because it looked like you were definitely a struggle bus there. But
I mean, I'm seeing the sun start to set and like the temperature got like 20 degrees colder. And I just also didn't know if at some point it was going to be like the time, like, you know, Amazing Race style, where the time you finish a task was the time you were released. But then with the partners, I guess that wouldn't have worked. But I mean, there's just all these thoughts in my head of being like, well, I'm last. I can't make up time, you know, so like, what's the point kind of thing? But I'm glad I got through it. I just, I did not eat onions for probably a solid 3 months.
Oh, wow.
It was awful.
Well, you did it.
Thank God.
Never one of the hardest things you've ever done, I guess. Oh,
yes.
We have a question from one of our patrons, Logan, and this was something I didn't see. So he says, how awkward was it when you tried to hug Dom after the decoder checkpoint and he turned around and left you with your arms out? Did this happen?
Okay, so I like vaguely remember this. I didn't notice it in the episode, but not like trying to like give away anything or like behind the scenes stuff, but all of us were having really bad acid reflux from the onion and the garlic, but to the point to where it was like almost like a scary, unfamiliar feeling, where if you haven't had severe heartburn or like acid reflux, Dom after that was genuinely concerned about his heart. Like, he thought he was like having like a minor heart attack. Like he was like, something doesn't feel right. Like, he was asking to get checked out, like by like medical and stuff. So like, if it's what I think that you're referencing, I think that was what was going on, because we were all like kind of checking in on him. Like, are you okay? But no, there were like multiple comments where I'm like, yeah, high five. And like nothing happened. I'm like, okay, you know,
okay, go. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think, yeah, he was like, we were all, there were moments of myself where I'm like, what is this feeling? Like, this is not right. This is not how my body should be feeling. But
then, I mean, getting through it is one thing, and then your body is processing it. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, to where it's like, I'm someone, I don't know if you guys have seen Four Christmases, like where Vince Vaughn is like, I can't see the throw up. Like, if someone throws up, like I'm going to throw up. I like, as people are throwing up, I'm like turning my body so I don't see it. But I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to throw up. But then I realized I also don't want this sitting in my body for the next 24 hours or however long we're going to be, you know, running this final. So yeah, we all reeked of, like, it was the most foul smell I've ever experienced. And yeah, everything just lingered. My tongue hurt so bad. The inside of my mouth, I had so many sores. But yeah, it's like, you have to endure all of that for the next 24 hours and keep running TJ's final feeling that way. Like, it sucked.
And now you're going to do some digging overnight. And this is when it really, I mean, it's already, it's like increasingly becoming miserable. And now this seems really miserable. What was your experience with this?
So here's the thing. If it wasn't for the weather, like, I wouldn't have been that, like, upset about it. Like, was it extremely difficult? Yes. But it was more like, I feel like Tyson made a comment on it. Like, it was just like, not degrading, but it's just like mindless stuff. Like, you get
Mhm.
into like this robot mode where you're
Right.
just shoveling dirt and carrying it and emptying it, shoveling dirt, carrying it and emptying it. Like, it's so like, there's no mental like fortitude in there other than just like just keep going, because it just seems like it's never ending. The thing that made it so unbearable was it was pouring rain.
Mhm.
And this is where I kind of have to admit that I didn't watch the final all the way at parts, just because I lived it and it was like a PTSD thing. I'm like, I can't watch this. Like, so it's like, I don't really know in depth how much they showed how bad the weather was at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but keep in mind, like, the gear that we have was not meant for being like poured on for 9 straight hours.
Right.
We were shoveling dirt until like 6:30 in the morning. I mean, it was a very, very long, wet, freezing cold night.
Mhm.
And take away the cold and the rain, you're shoveling dirt. Well, what happens to dirt when it gets wet? So now it's literally like shoveling cement.
Mhm.
I mean, it was unbelievably heavy. And so, yeah, I don't know. You just kind of, you go into this mental block and you don't even realize like what you're doing. Like, I was just a robot. Like, I
Mhm.
genuinely was just a robot.
Yeah.
To where there was definitely a long chunk of time where Dom and Sarah had made multiple comments to me. They're like, "Are you going to go wake Tyson up? Like, I mean, you've been out here for a while." It was almost better for me mentally to just keep shoveling dirt, because then I felt like I was doing something, because I wasn't even able to sleep when I was taking a break, because
Mm.
the heartburn from the onion was so unbearable, and my tongue was like on fire, and I was just so cold because
Yeah.
I'm now just I'm laying in my own wet clothes.
Ugh.
But to take them off and sleep, because I know a bunch of us were like, do we take them off or do we put them on? So we tried to take them
Right.
off, but then putting on wet
Wet.
clothes, cold, wet clothes. So now your body temperature is just changing constantly, to where I was like, well, if I lay in it wet, it will like slowly warm up the cold, wet clothes. Until
Mhm.
finally I just gave up and I sat out there with Sarah and Dom at the fire in the rain, because at least
Right.
I was getting the fire heat. It's just like, it's one of those things where I see the Twitter comments, I see everything of like, oh, they would never last in the flagship. Like, it had nothing to do with like I thought all that stuff was difficult. It was more so the elements and the things for us being prepared for those elements. Like,
Right.
the rain just was, I mean, I any of
No.
us that you talk to, it was just, give us a cold regular night, like, great. I would have slept. Tyson and I would have taken turns. The sand wouldn't have been as heavy. Like, it's like the task itself wasn't what was
Right.
grueling. It was the conditions.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we definitely can see. I believe we go to a commercial break because they're gonna, give us this whole Angela mess. But
yeah.
come back from commercial break, and you guys are lined up to talk to TJ, and y'all look like crap.
Yeah.
So it's clear, like we can tell it's cold, we can tell it's raining, but now we know you guys are absolutely miserable. You
Yeah.
just
We're
are
like over it
so.
by this point.
Yes. Did you
Yeah.
have an opinion, or were you paying attention to what was going on with Angela at this point?
Yes. Oh, I had a very strong opinion. Like, I had made multiple comments. Like, and again, I love her. I consider her a friend, but in the challenge, like, running TJ's final, like, you don't get to just opt out. Like, you don't get to
Mhm.
just be like, I'm not going to do this one and I'll take last place. I don't understand where the confusion is there. Um, and so take away, I guess, her thinking that that was an option. There was a sign before we ever even walked to our little grave dirt things that said you had to at least get the dirt off the pole to get a code, which would then, when you restack the dirt, unlock the lock at the top for the puzzle pieces that you'll need to run the rest of TJ's final. So it's like, if you opt out, then you never got the code to unlock to get your puzzle pieces for the rest of it.
Right.
So
she knew, and Danny.
Well, and here's the thing: like
she
might not, maybe genuinely in her mind, she's like, I didn't know. But like for me, I'm like, I just don't. That's just not an acceptable answer for me. Only because you saw that even if someone came in last, like, you know, with Angela and Dom and their puzzle in round 1, like when they time out, like, but they were still doing it. Like, so if you're not even like doing it, you don't even have the opportunity to time out or to get last because you just chose to rest and sleep. Like, don't you think we all could have band together and been like, well, how about we all don't do it and we all just sleep and we all take no points, and then we'll just skip this shoveling dirt all together and then we'll just do the next part. Like, that's kind of how, at that point in time, as I'm soaking wet, I'm freezing, I have heartburn, my body is exhausted from moving cement, and she wakes up crisp, clean, dry, and ready in, like, so I'm looking at it as like, you're now your absolute best to run the final part of the race, and the rest of us are like bruised and battered kind of thing. I'm like, I just don't get how there was confusion or even a thought of, well, I can just sit this one out and take last. Right. So it's like, I mean, I can't, I mean, if that's really what she believed, like, okay, but I just, being a fan of the show, I've never seen someone just be like, well, I'm just not going to do this one and I'll take last. I'll take the last points and then I'll just continue the rest and I'll be well rested. Like, cause that was the thing that she said. Like, we're all there as she's talking and saying, she's like, yeah, well, I'm just going to take the loss so that way I'm well rested for tomorrow. And it's like, well, we all could have just said that. We all could have just been like, well, we're not going to do it. We'll just be well rested for tomorrow and not get wet. So that it was just odd to me. And I get, like, you're by yourself and you had to do more, but you've seen, if you were last and it got to a point where we all need to move on, at that point, yeah, they'd give you last and you could keep going. It's, you know, it's not like she had to be out there all night shoveling. She could have shoveled, and every time someone swapped out, she could go sleep. And then when she heard someone swapping out, she could have gone back out. It's like, I don't know. It's
so she could have asked someone to wake her up.
Yeah, I had very strong opinions on it at that time. And, you know, it's like, I see her point of view. It just doesn't make sense for me because I was there, because I saw the sign and I was like, I get just taking the last place, but it said you had to get puzzle pieces to run the rest. So
we didn't get that, though. As a viewer, we don't know that you guys have to get your puzzle pieces. We don't even, I mean, they cut out the whole get the code and go back and forth. We just kind of see part of this. But so at first I was like, oh, good, work smarter, not harder. Great, she'll be rested for the next day. But the more we learn about like what the task actually is, and then Danny came on here and said that there were times he was like, maybe I won't do this. And production came over and was like, are you sure you want to stop doing this? And he was like, they made it clear to me that I couldn't stop. And he said, I saw them go talk to her. What they said to her, I don't know, but I have to imagine it's along the same lines. So she's getting a warning and there is that sign. We have to assume.
Like, if production's coming to you and saying like, so why are you stopping? Like, I don't know, just this isn't all of our first time doing, you know, a game. So I don't know. I just felt like she should have been able to put 2 and 2 together. And like, maybe that was her way of being like, I'm done. I'm done with this. But yeah, it's just, I'm all about work smarter, not harder, but that's not what TJ's final is. And as a fan of the challenge, you don't get to just say, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. Like, you have to do his final. Like, I didn't understand that. And it was just disappointing because, again, like, Angela's a beast, you know? So again, selfishly, I'm like, well, cool. That's one less person, strong female that I have to beat. But there was also a level of doubt because, I mean, she was definitely, you know, favorited. Like, everyone, like, she's a beast. Like, she's so impressive. I'm impressed by her, to where I was like, they are not just going to let her like just sleep and, You know, so like I mean, I was just happy that I felt like that outcome was fair. I know some people
Right.
think that it wasn't fair, but for us doing that final, like that was the fair outcome.
Right. Right. Yeah. In that moment, you're like, heck yeah, do
Yeah.
you see what I did?
Yeah. I mean, we were
Oh
all
my
miserable. Like it was
God.
like
Right.
we all were in it together and she was the only one that like just like got to sleep. And when you see us all in the lineup, she's like pristine and poor, like Justine next to her. Like we all look like
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is definitely not one I'd want to have by myself. Like, this is a nightmare at this
yeah,
point.
well, and let's touch base on that for a second. I wouldn't want to do any of them by myself. Like, that's what was so frustrating with the whole Ben thing was,
Yeah.
well, that's not fair to the females. How about we really do a random algorithm and we all are partnered at random? I'll run one of these legs with Angela. I'll run one with Sarah, Justine, Desi, any of them. You know, it's like, I just felt like that was unfair to the females, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
brutally honest. I'm
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
to me, that was dirty. I'm like, I don't agree with that. But I mean, it is what
Right.
it is.
Oh,
That's
we're the
showbiz.
ones that, yeah, we're the ones that gets to be stuck by ourselves. Interesting. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it goes against the rules, but step one, we lose Ben. Step two, we lose Desi and Enzo. It's kind of like, well, why don't we just let Desi now pair up and no one runs by themselves? But I
Yeah.
guess that would be against the rules that we just established. So.
Yep.
Well, now you are working your way up this mountain, miserable, cold. You are doing very well at the puzzles, though. So you are, moving along.
Hmm.
This edit, I don't know how much you watched of this, but this was
I'll be
very
honest. I didn't. I didn't. So I'm just going to
okay.
speak to my experience.
Yeah, let me tell you how confusing it was. It got real
Okay.
choppy for everybody's edit at this point. They're clearly not showing us what's actually happening. They're like,
Yeah.
cut, cut, cut.
Which again,
And
the weather. I mean, I can't
mm,
imagine how much they could actually get. But yeah, sorry.
oh,
Continue.
true. Yeah, production's like, you approach a Sudoku and you're like, oh, yeah, we're killing it. And
Yeah.
then cut back to you and you're shaking and look like you're on the verge of tears and you're saying something about being scared and then boom, you're gone. And we're like, wait, what? Where's Cayla?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what happened to me after that first puzzle, it was a significant hike up to the Sudoku, which obviously we're gaining elevation. It had started to snow. There's puddles of literally ice water that you had to walk through to get to the Sudoku. And I mean, like to your ankles, there's no way of avoiding it, like melted snow. So my feet were already soaking wet from the night before in the dirt challenge. Like all of me, head to toe, is already soaking wet, started soaking wet. Now it's not only soaking wet, but it's like ice cold water. And
What kind of shoes are y'all wearing at this point?
we had like hiking boots, but they were definitely not all weather. Like it
Mm.
was just,
No, you
yeah,
need
they
straight
were.
like snow gear
Yeah,
at this point.
it was just like a pair of hiking boots. Same thing with like the gloves. Like I don't know, I didn't look specifically at them, but my sister lives in Alaska. I know what snow weather gloves
Mm-hmm.
are. These were not them. So at this point, like, I mean, if anyone has like had a change in body temperature where you go from working up a sweat, like, so I'm wearing a ton of layers that were soaking wet, but now as I'm moving, I'm sweating and getting
Mm-hmm.
even more wet underneath my clothes, in my gloves and my shoes. I'm going through snowy water, and now I have to be at a standstill in the
Mm-hmm.
snow as my body temperature is now cooling down. So all of the water on my body is now starting to meet the temperature that it is outside. So yeah, I show up and I'm like elated because I'm like, oh, this is Sudoku. I know how to do it. And I will say for everyone else, it said like complete the pattern of numbers, but I'm like, it's Sudoku. I know what the pattern is because I've done Sudoku before. Thank God.
Yeah.
Um, but the problem was for me, the pieces that you had to put up on the board were magnetic. And because it was so cold, those little square, flimsy magnetic numbers are all stuck together. And for my hands now are like frozen solid. So I'm trying to separate these pieces. So, and at first, like I get like a couple numbers and I'm putting them up there, but it's like each like number I figure out like is time passing that my body is cooling down and I'm just sitting in the snow.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I can't separate these numbers like fast enough to where like my hands are now like they're like hurting. So I recognize that my hand, like, I don't know if you guys have ever like gotten so cold to where your hands and your feet like hurt.
Yeah.
So I went through that phase of them hurting to where I'm now trying to separate my stupid little numbers, like with my teeth even, but my teeth are chattering so hard that like I'm like, and like I can't do it. So then I'm like, well, shoot, like I guess I need to take. I'm like, well, maybe I'll take my gloves off, and maybe it'll be easier to separate these numbers without my cold stopping wet gloves. Well, now my hands are like out in the cold and I've gone past the point of my hands and my feet don't hurt anymore. I just can't feel them anymore. And my friend asked me a good question. She's like, if you hadn't known that everyone else had quit, would you have kept going? And to be honest, like, I don't think that influenced my decision. Like, again, my sister lives in Alaska. I've been in the cold before. I knew that the fact that I couldn't feel my hands or feet was like not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just thinking about how they've been covered in wet shoes and wet gloves for going on, 12 plus hours at this point. And I'm like, it's just not good, like I just knew it wasn't good. So then I'm just frustrated because I'm like, I know that a 6 goes here and I know this goes here, but I can't get the pieces separated. So, I'm like, if I could just get the pieces separated and like I could try and put them up with my mouth, because I can't even move my hands at this point. It was just like, it was one of those mental battles where like, yeah, I'm crying because I'm sitting here looking at the Sudoku board and I'm like, I know it. I literally know what number goes where, but I physically can't move my fingers and make them work correctly because they're so like, I felt like they were like frostbitten. So then when that thought had gone in my mind, I'm looking around and everyone to my knowledge has quit. I know Danny went on. Sarah is like still so far behind me that I'm like, I bet you she's probably quit at this point. Like, I'm just like, in my mind, I was just like, I was scared for my feet and my toes, if I'm being so honest. I'm like, is $500,000 worth me losing fingers and toes? Because I wanted to take my shoes off to see what color my feet were, because I was so cold and freaked out. And then the longer I sat there, I was just shivering to the point of where like I had never felt pain like that before. Like, it was just like a foreign feeling to where I was like, I don't know. I think the thought crept in my mind of like, I think I'm like dangerously cold. Like, I don't think that this is okay. And so, that's when like the cameras are coming closer and, they're like, well, what do you, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not quitting. I'm not going to quit this. Like, I know how to do Sudoku. Like, if someone can just separate these pieces for me, and I'll tell you where they go. And, I get that you can't do that. But it just got so bad to the point to where, like my internal body temperature was so bad to where I had to quit. And I was in an ambulance, which was weird because they show it in the preview, but I basically got hypothermia.
And they remove you via ambulance. We see none of this.
Yeah, legitimately. Yeah, my internal body temperature just couldn't like regulate itself. It was so cold.
Yeah.
And yeah, like when my shoes finally came off, like my feet were like this, like they when you're so cold, your hands are either white or they're red. They were like this, like freakishly like grayish, like I was cold. Like, I was just so cold to where I knew even if And, that's what people ask, like, okay, well, like, let's say, you could have gotten the pieces or something. My problem is I didn't know what was next, like,
Yeah,
which I
right.
now know was still a hike up. And with not being able to feel my feet or my hands, I don't even know if I would have been able to hike at that point
Mhm.
because I had sat still so long at the Sudoku trying to get the pieces
Yeah,
to where the thought of like physically moving, it was like more so like mentally like, okay, I know my feet are there, I know my hands are there, but like why can't I feel them? It just kind of like, it almost was like a panic attack kind of thing. It like
right.
spooked me. And
Yeah,
then I was just like, at this point, I don't care about it anymore. I just don't want to lose my hands and feet, which, to some people like could be like, oh, you're dramatic, but until you've been that cold, and then to hear that like I went into like hypothermic shock, I mean, it at least like validated like I don't know. It
how
sucks that
much
I
money
had,
is worth losing your feet? Like,
yeah, I
let's
would,
what?
yeah. And it was like a joke. Like, I think some people are like, oh, you have such cute toes. I'm like, I have cute toes. Like, I can't lose my toes. But I mean, it sucks. I never wanted to be a quitter.
Sure.
I never, ever, ever, the second I saw about Sudoku, I genuinely was like, I just won. Like, I was so confident because I just knew I was that far ahead of Sarah. I'm like, I
Yeah,
just won this because I know how to do Sudoku. And then when I realized that I was like, my hands were starting to be like not functioning and I couldn't separate the pieces, the cold just kept creeping in and creeping in. And then, yeah, I mean, mentally seeing people that like Tyson, I saw him right before I got to the Sudoku and he was almost like not recognizable. Like he was
mhm,
so frozen. And so it's like all that stuff kind of plays into you. And, you haven't slept. You've had nothing to eat but onions. You're exhausted from the shoveling the dirt. It's been pouring rain. My shoes and my gloves were not meant for the snow. They're soaking wet. I can't feel anything. So I was just in that moment. It was like safety, like fight or flight. And I was like, I don't think that this is like safe for me anymore. Like
right.
I have to throw in the towel. And it was
Well,
devastating. I mean,
right.
that's why I didn't watch part of the final because it was just so devastating to me. I felt like I let Amazing Race down. I felt like I let all my friends and family at home down. I've been gone and I was right there. And also like, in my mind, I'm like, this is what happened to me on Amazing Race. I had it and I lost it, and
So close.
it's a hard pill to swallow. It sucks,
It
but
is. When I saw you sit down, again, your edit was so choppy. I saw you sit in the ground and I thought, because you and I are Florida girls, I didn't know about your Alaska connection, but I cannot tolerate cold at all. I would have not made it as far as you for sure. So when I saw you sit down, though, I was like, that actually is coming. Now the cold is like in your butt. Now it's coming
yeah,
to the core of your body,
yeah.
which made me concerned.
But it was because my
Ugh,
feet were like, it
yeah,
was like that needle like they were so cold, they hurt. And so I was like, well, maybe if I just sit. And also I thought if I could like sit and be in this contained position, I would have a better way of separating my Sudoku numbers. But it was
hmm
just so frustrating, sitting up there and be like, okay, a six goes here. Now I have to look down and I'm having such a hard time using my hands, finding the six and separating it from the numbers that by the time I look up, I'm like, shit, where did I just say six went? Now I got to
hmm
do it all over again. And it was just every little second counted in the sense of like my bodily warmth.
right.
And again, yeah, I'll fully admit I'm a Florida girl. And that's another thing. I was like, if Sarah does get to this point, she's from Iowa. She can do the cold. I can't,
hmm
like I can't help it.
Yeah,
I was beyond like devastated. I was like super disappointed in myself. But like at the end of the day, like I know what I felt and I know truly like in my like heart of hearts, like I felt like I am dangerously cold. And then it was validated by like being in the ambulance and they're like, yeah, you're like hypothermic. We got to get your internal body temperature like warmed up or like it's really bad for your heart and like all this stuff. And I was like, oh shit, I was really cold. So it wasn't
right.
like, oh, I was cold and I had to quit. Like, I
No,
mean,
all of that's validated. And you weren't the only person who quit. Like, none of this is like
Yeah.
should sit on your shoulders.
And it doesn't anymore. It just in that moment, you know, because again, I'm coming so fresh off of Amazing Race where me and Raquel had the win. And in my mind, I'm like, I see Sudoku and I'm like, I have Sarah beat. I
Yeah.
truly, every part of me was like, I'm winning. And then it just, like the fact of us not having dry hands and feet were just
Yeah.
detrimental to,
Mhm.
you know, and again, and it sucked because it's Patagonia and I've always wanted to be there. And if that storm hadn't have rolled in, like the cold would have been fine. It was the wet part that just took out all of us. I mean,
Yeah.
it literally took out all of us. And it
I
sucks
don't I
to
don't
hear.
go out when it just rains normal. So
Yeah, like I don't know, it sucked. Yeah, Florida girl could not handle the snow. It sucked, but
if I did the math correctly. Oh, but first, your dad is very proud of you
I
and he
know
never
I
let
see.
you down.
I know when I told them about like my hypothermia and like all that, like they were like not they were like, what the heck?
Yeah, you gotta take care of yourself. Like no competition reality TV show is worth you losing your toes or anything.
But as a fan, I was like, but is it worth it? Like I got this. And then obviously that was my outcome. But
Here's my next question because I was doing the math, and if I understand how these points work,
Mhm.
you were at 14 and Sarah was at 17. If you had hit that mountain first ahead of her, you would have gotten 10 points. I believe he said points were doubled. So you would
Correct.
have had 24. But if she had come in second, she adds 8 points. She still wins 25 to 24 for you.
Yeah. That's how we like did the math afterwards too, which was like a little bit of like a consolidation for me. I'm like, well, okay,
Yeah.
at least like, you know, which also I'm kind of like, no, if you make it up TJ's mountain first, I feel like you win. But I mean, yeah, it was a
Yes.
point system thing. So yeah, she still would have had me by 1 point. I was just looking at it as I made it to TJ first, like I won.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's like if I would have completed it, I still would have gone home with the money in my bank account, which would have only been 7,000. But it would have been like I finished TJ's final and I finished it first. I might not have
Yeah.
had the most points. But that was also a little bit of like a consolidation of like, all right, well, I still wouldn't have gotten first. So, like, you know, had I finished the Sudoku and had I been able to hike back up there, like, would it have been worth it to like stick out and like possibly lose a toe? Like, I don't know. Like, I genuinely was that cold.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't think $7,000 is worth losing your foot
no.
over. What would have been fun or interesting is if Justine had still been there and you guys could have worked together, maybe. Because
Yeah.
if she took second place, then that bumps Sarah's numbers down, and then maybe you could have taken the win. But that
Yeah.
timing just didn't seem to work out for that.
No, by the time I had gotten there, it was like quick, 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 and I didn't understand like what had it had been such a long final that
Yeah.
I was having such a hard time understanding like what was happening because I'm the only one there doing the Sudoku, but I'm like, but I saw Tyson and I saw Justine, so for a moment I'm like, did I actually see them? There was a point in the hike where I was full blown. I thought I was hallucinating. Like I saw a
Yeah.
bird and I like called the bird my friend Molly. I'm like talking to Molly to get myself up this stupid mountain. Like I was full blown, like losing my mind to where I was like, did I just see them quit? Like I mean,
That's
my mind
dangerous.
was so exhausted and like put through the ringer. I genuinely was like questioning everything. But yeah, I mean, to see all of them quit, I'm like, well, shit, you know, like it affects you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
but
think that this point system kind of made it more okay to quit. Or at least looking at Tyson, Tyson knows Danny already left. Tyson follows Danny and comes in second. He doesn't win. So, like, what's the point here?
yeah,
Especially like you said, you guys don't know what's next. You don't know that you're just like climb a
yeah.
mountain and you're
Yeah,
there.
it's kind of confusing because again, like you said, like I had to be reminded even just now, like, oh, she would have still had me by 1 point because in that moment
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I won, you
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I was like,
I
Kayla
wouldn't
won?
have.
I was like, oh my God, I had no idea Kayla won.
But yeah, no,
And then
Sarah would have still had me by a point,
yeah.
which yeah, we were talking about afterwards. I was like, okay, yeah. So I don't feel bad about getting hypothermia and like it is
No.
what it is. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't have won even if I would have beat her up the mountain. But
Exactly. Ray, thank
yeah.
you for the super
Hello,
sticker.
Ray.
Right, big Amazing Race fan. Well, I heard a rumor that maybe more than just Danny and Sarah will go into this championship show. Would you be up for, being technically a runner-up?
Would I be up to going if it's more than just them two?
Yes.
Oh, hell
Yes.
yeah. I literally told them afterwards as I'm like freezing cold and whatever. I'm like, I'll do it again. But no, I would. I mean, I can't let my reputation be second place Cayla. Like I have to give myself another chance. And again, I'm like such a fan of all this stuff for so long that I mean, truly, I feel so grateful for even getting the opportunity in the first place to do Amazing Race and now the challenge.
Mhm.
But yeah, like now it's just like now I feel like I have the confidence that I didn't have when I first came into the challenge. Because again, everyone else had a lot more heads up. I literally had 5 days.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I just had a lot of like I had a lot of adjustments I had to make mentally and physically to where I would jump at the opportunity to, yeah, go again because I just feel like I don't know. I just feel a lot more confident in my abilities given
Right.
my first experience. So,
Yes, and people will not, think of you as an underdog moving forward. My gosh. They
which
shouldn't.
could be bad for me because like maybe that helped me get as far as I did because people kind of like maybe I
True.
flew under the radar, but
So it sounds like
um
you would do this version again. It sounds like you're a fan of the MTV flagship, so you would do that version. What else
yeah,
are we looking for? Are we going on Survivor? What are we doing, Cayla?
I would die to be on Survivor.
Like die in a good way or
No, oh,
die
no, like, I
from
would be so excited, like, I've never it's like, I like to test myself, and, I just feel like Survivor would be, like, the ultimate test, you know?
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm, like, religiously watching it here at the house because with after playing with Tyson and Ben and Sarah and Dom, I'm,
Yeah.
like, rewatching all their seasons, and, I mean,
They're
I'll
some of the
always be
greats.
there. I mean, I'm so obsessed with Survivor, that would be a dream come true, but, I mean, I honestly like, I still think that me and Raquel could be the next all-female winner for Amazing Race if we could get another shot at it,
All stars.
but
Let's go. Redemption
no.
season, something. Yes. I'm for it. I'm for all of it. And also,
Yes.
yeah, you should watch Winners at War at some point.
I'm literally watching it right now. I just got to the part where Tyson won getting back in after Edge of Extinction, and
Mm,
so I'm
okay.
obsessed. I'm now like a Survivor, like, obsessor.
Yes, it's really good. It's a really good show. Yeah. I mean, I love all of them, but
Yeah.
except I don't watch the challenge on MTV, but I will watch the CBS version.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, that's it for me. Well, what else? What we've covered a lot. You've given us so many details. Did we miss anything about your relationships or your experience that you wanted to share?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it was just really fun to watch back, but yeah, I'm glad that I got it because I missed exit press because, like I said, I was in Croatia. So my biggest thing was, yeah, I it was crazy seeing how some of the dots of like my social relationships weren't initially like connected. So I'm glad I
Mhm.
got to like elaborate on that a little bit because I really contribute how far I went to the effort I put into like the relationships that I made in the house. So
Yeah, I
I
mean, it's
don't
pretty
know.
impressive to come from underdog status, one of three from your show, to basically the runner-up of the season. So
Yeah.
that's really impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Just
you should feel
hopefully
good about that.
I do. I do feel good now after like letting like, the dust and the sting settle. um
Yeah,
but I do hope that if we get to do it again that there would be more amazing racers because I don't know. I'm just such a fighter for Amazing Race and
I know.
our family and I'm like we would have all done so well like given if we had more people.
I agree. I was shocked there weren't more racers. I don't understand that. And like you said, the challenges early on were very Amazing Race. Y'all
Very.
would have killed it. If y'all had eight like everybody else, insane. You would have
Yeah.
ran it. It would have been
Oh
amazing to
man.
watch. So
But
next time,
no.
do that, CBS.
Yeah. Nudge, nudge.
Right, right. Well, Cayla, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and being
Of
so honest about
course.
your experience.
Yeah. Thanks for wanting to chat with me and letting me share.
Yes, and we're going to have you back. We're going to talk about Amazing Race this season.
Yes.
You've got your podcast going. Plug that for everybody.
I will. That is Pit Stop Podcast. It's on YouTube. You can give us a follow on Instagram as well at pitstop_podcast_. But yeah, we just do like a little fun recap, kind of touch base and relate it to our experience. That's with Dusty Harris. He was on my season, who I also think would crush the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Good.
I'm not doing so hot in our pool.
Our draft isn't going well for you. I don't know. I kind of have a hunch, though, that your one team left might be a winner pick.
I know. I think so too, but I guess we gotta keep watching.
Yes. Fingers crossed, because it was not a good start.
Not a good start for Cayla's team.
No. And I guess we got to have you back on to talk about Survivor now that you're all into it.
Yes. Let me know. I'm obsessed. I'm a real true fan now.
Yay. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for watching along and contributing. We really appreciate it. And if you're watching later, please leave a comment telling us how much you love Cayla, why you love Cayla so much, and all the shows you want to see Cayla beast out on. Yeah. All of those things.
And hopefully I can execute next time.
Okay. First off, second place is actually executing.
I know.
I know it doesn't feel like that in the moment, but please remember, especially Amazing Race, like an all-women team that was so impressive. And then, holy crap, this whole final thing, that was impressive. So
thank you. Thank you.
At least remember that when you're like crying yourself to sleep at night.
I will. It only happens every now and then. I'm like, oh, I'm just kidding.
I can't imagine the PTSD you guys have after these shows.
Oh, it was brutal. Like I said, I couldn't eat onions for like 3 months.
I mean, I love watching you guys be tortured as a viewer. It's very fun, but I can't even cut onions. Like my whole body goes into like cries and sweats and just having an onion in the room.
Yeah, well, I don't recommend eating one raw, so.
Yeah, no, God, no. Okay. Hard pass. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll talk later. Bye.